The human warrior stood on the jagged ridge of crystalline rock, the wind from the gas giant storm tearing at his adaptive armor with enough force to make the reinforced fibers groan. He wasn't cold, not exactly, though the planet's climate cycled unpredictably between scorching bursts of ionized solar flares and sudden, freezing gusts that could turn a man's bones brittle if he wasn't careful. He adjusted the visor over his eyes, which flickered with tactical data in faint neon hues, and muttered, "Of course, the one day I decide to practice my brooding, the planet insists on dramatic weather. Thanks, universe." His voice echoed against the jagged cliffs only to be swallowed by the strange, soft hum that vibrated through the rocks themselves, like the planet was breathing. He had been waiting for this moment for months. Every instinct, every detail of his training had been leading to this precise instant. The alien woman would appear, as inevitable as a sunrise on a binary star system, and she would issue her command. He would respond. That was the plan. The execution, however, required patience and subtlety, qualities the human had cultivated with more effort than he wanted to admit. And then she arrived. She didn't land in a roar of engines or with the crushing inevitability of alien authority. She appeared at the edge of a phosphorescent grove, the long ears of her species twitching in a rhythm that betrayed both curiosity and command. She looked human enough to be familiar, and yet subtly different. Her skin had a faint luminescent sheen that shifted with the angle of the light. Her eyes were a liquid copper that caught even the faintest glints of the dying sun, and those ears, oh, those ears, arched and flexed with a grace that would make even the most confident diplomat pause. She wore an outfit that suggested military precision without sacrificing style, an ensemble of fabrics that shimmered like the auroras overhead. "Human," she said, her voice a melody of steel and silk, commanding yet playful. "You have waited long enough, kneel." The words themselves weren't unusual, yet the power behind them vibrated in the air, setting a subtle current against his skin. It was the sort of command that could make a less disciplined warrior buckle immediately, or worse, break their composure entirely. He raised a brow beneath his visor, a smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. "Ah, so we start with the theatrics," he murmured to himself. "Good to know she's polite enough to say please." Then louder, "Neil, you say, How about we negotiate that? I'll throw in a dramatic pause for effect." The alien woman's ears twitched, her head tilting ever so slightly. A spark of amusement flickered in her copper eyes. "Do not toy with me, human. I am not known for my patience." Her tone held the weight of countless command structures across the galaxy, but he caught the subtle cadence that betrayed her enjoyment in the little performance, the game of wits he had anticipated. He glanced at the terrain. The ridge he stood on was precarious, littered with spiked crystalline outcrops that would make falling spectacularly painful, perfect for dramatic effect. He let himself stumble slightly over a crystal, catching his balance at the last second, and threw a hand to the ground. "See, gravity conspires against me, I kneel, but not without flair." He winked at a nearby rock formation, entirely aware it couldn't appreciate his theatrics. The alien woman's expression remained unreadable, though her ears flexed in a manner that suggested suppressed amusement. "You are clever," she said finally, voice softening in that peculiar way that suggested both reprimand and praise. "Too clever for your own good." He straightened, brushing imaginary dust from his armor, and made a show of finally lowering himself into a kneel. "There," he said, satisfied, "I've added a touch of humility and a pinch of style. You may feel free to issue further dramatic orders." Her lips twitched, perhaps the faintest smile, and she crossed the glowing grove to stand closer, her presence commanding yet oddly gentle. "Warrior, you underestimate the weight of obedience in my culture," she said, letting her words trail like an invitation rather than a warning. "Kneeling is more than posture, it is acknowledgement of understanding, of respect. Do you comprehend?" He tilted his head, pretending to weigh the gravity of her statement. "I comprehend," he replied, "with the caveat that I also comprehend that you're enjoying this little game as much as I am. And might I say your ears are rather expressive. Ever considered acting?" A flicker of color ran across her skin, a blush that looked both strange and beautiful under the ambient glow of the planet's twin moons. "Acting. I command legions, human, I do not act, you mistake my authority for performance." Her ears twitched sharply, almost like punctuation. "And yet, you amuse me." He suppressed a chuckle. Good. I was going for charming, but I'll settle for amusing. Humor is the true universal language, after all. A small burst of static ran across his armor interface, and he gave a half-sarcastic salute to the control panels, muttering, "And yes, I promise to keep my jokes about interspecies hierarchies to a minimum." For a moment, they simply regarded each other. The wind shifted, carrying fine particles of crystal dust that sparkled like starlight, and the groves around them pulsed faintly in response to their presence. It was a planet alive in subtle, sentient ways, and the warrior knew that every movement, every thought, every feigned stumble was being recorded by the environment itself. The alien woman's ears twitched with interest, and he wondered if she felt the subtle pressure of the planet's awareness, or if she simply enjoyed being seen as a master of both strategy and spectacle. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them shivered. Not a quake exactly, but a resonance, a hum that vibrated through the soles of his boots. "Ah," he said, grinning despite the tension. "Now the planet joins the audience. I suppose that makes 3 judges, if you count your ears and my poor sense of balance." The alien woman's lips curved, almost imperceptibly. "You are incorrigible," she said, voice laced with irritation and amusement in equal measure. "You always treat your battles as a performance." "Only when the battle looks this good," he said, gesturing at the alien canopy, the jagged crystal, the iridescent sky streaked with stormlight. "Otherwise, I prefer long naps and bad coffee." He paused, noting the faint twitch of her ears. "Do you drink coffee? No? Ah well, I'll save that joke for the history books." Her gaze sharpened, assessing, calculating. "Your confidence is notable," she said. "But confidence does not equate to submission, nor does amusement equate to compliance. Remember that, human. There is a difference between strategy and folly." He nodded solemnly, though the smirk never left his face. "Noted, and yet," he said, his tone dipping into theatrical gravitas, "I find that folly can be a useful tool. After all, if one can make the commander smile, does one not gain an advantage?" A ripple passed through her skin, a wave of faint luminescence that matched the twitching of her ears. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "but do not presume that your amusement grants you victory. I am patient, and patience is a weapon as sharp as any blade." He leaned back slightly, testing the ridge, then reclined into a dramatic sprawl. "Well then, I shall enjoy your patience while it lasts. Nothing like basking in enemy patience to make one feel heroic." And so, amid a chorus of subtle planetary hums, the twinkling crystal ridges, and the gentle sway of alien flora that seemed to lean in as if listening, the human warrior and the long-eared alien woman began their intricate, humorous, and infinitely tense dance of strategy, wits, and interstellar charm. Neither fully yielding, both fully aware that the moment of truth would come, and that when it did, the outcome would be as unpredictable as the weather on a world that seemed to watch them with quiet amusement. The human warrior stepped cautiously through the shifting terrain, each footfall crunching against the iridescent crystal fragments that littered the ground like broken starlight. The adaptive armor hummed softly, recalibrating to the sudden changes in gravity as the planet's magnetic anomalies flared unpredictably. He muttered under his breath, "Gravity, why do you always insist on auditioning for the worst dance recital in the galaxy?" And the sound of his voice bounced off the crystalline ridges, merging with the faint, sentient hum of the planet. Somewhere behind him, a shadow moved with deliberate grace, and he knew that shadow was her, his long-eared adversary, the alien woman whose every step seemed both a command and a test. She had emerged from a grove that pulsed faintly, bioluminescent veins of alien flora stretching toward her as if acknowledging her presence. Her eyes, liquid copper, impossible to forget, tracked him without hesitation, and her ears twitched in a rhythm that might have been a heartbeat or an unspoken calculation. She moved with a poise that suggested the entirety of her culture's command structures had trained to march in her shadow, yet there was a playfulness to her step, a lightness that belied the authority she wielded. "Do you always wander so dramatically, human?" she asked, voice cutting through the hum of the planet. "I could command you to kneel, and yet you choose theatrics instead." Her tone carried amusement, though carefully veiled behind the weight of authority. He slowed, spinning a crystalline shard between his fingers like a magician with a trick no one had asked to see. "Theatrics, yes, but only when the stage is worthy. And this planet, you have to admit, it's spectacular." I mean, who needs holograms when you've got sentient rock formations and neon foliage? He tossed the shard lightly into the air and caught it. Though, admittedly, it does tend to throw off my dramatic timing. Her ears twitched sharply, a gesture he had begun to understand as a subtle form of evaluation. Do not mistake levity for weakness, she said, advancing with the precision of a predator who had memorized every possible path he might take. I will fold your strategy into submission if you underestimate me. He tilted his head, letting a playful grin stretch across his face beneath the visor. Ah, but here's the thing, he said, gesturing broadly to the shifting landscape. I've been expecting you to say that. Every step, every command, predictable, you might as well be a training program with ears. He tapped the side of his helmet with mock solemnity. Though I must admit, your ears are rather expressive. Almost enough to distract me from my imminent doom. The alien woman's lips curved subtly, and her ears flicked in a pattern that seemed almost musical. You are foolish enough to joke while facing me, yet clever enough to survive the planet's challenges, she said. A combination rarely seen among humans. Perhaps this will be entertaining. The terrain shifted as they moved, patches of gravitic flux causing their bodies to stretch and compress unnaturally, a challenge both to balance and to strategy. The warrior bounded over a crystal outcrop that threatened to stab through his armor, landing with a graceless roll that would have been comical if not for the sheer danger of the planet's quirks. He muttered, and here I thought parkour on Mars was bad. She watched, her arms folded elegantly, her stance both commanding and indulgent. Even in motion you seek to entertain, she said, her voice threading through the fluctuating gravity with ease. Do you not realize the risks? One misstep. One misstep? He interrupted with mock horror, throwing his hands skyward as though a breeze might strike him down. If I had a credit for every misstep, I'd be rich enough to buy an interstellar yacht by now. But alas, here I am balancing between peril and style. And style, my dear commander, is crucial. The alien woman exhaled, a sound that seemed to bend the very atmosphere. Style will not save you when obedience is demanded, she said, advancing with careful steps that defied the unstable terrain. You confuse amusement with understanding, human. Do you comprehend the difference? He crouched low, tapping the ground in mock solemnity. I comprehend vaguely, he said, but I also comprehend that you enjoy the subtle rebellion, the little dance we share. Admit it. If I were boring, would you be following me across this neon minefield? Her ears twitched again, the subtle movement betraying her composure. Perhaps, she said slowly, but even amusement carries consequences. Each jest you make is noted, each step you take observed. The planet itself records your performance. He glanced around as a faint shimmer moved across the crystalline landscape, a ripple of subtle energy that indeed seemed to pulse in rhythm with their movements. Ah, the planet is judging me now, he said, bowing theatrically. I hope it appreciates the dramatic tension and comedic timing. Perhaps later it will award me a medal. The alien woman's lips pressed into a line, and she tilted her head in a gesture that somehow made her both terrifying and approachable. You are incorrigible, she said, a soft note of exasperation threading through her tone. Do you ever take anything seriously? Occasionally, he replied, vaulting over another patch of gravitic turbulence, but only when danger threatens, like this little planetary quirk here. His boots barely made contact with the shifting surface before he tumbled into a controlled roll. See, seriousness with style, efficiency with flair, a little humor to keep morale high, multitasking, basically. She raised an eyebrow, if such a gesture could be called that, with ears that flexed like flowing banners. You are audacious. To survive, you must combine wit with caution. Do you understand? He propped himself against a crystalline spire, smearing imaginary dust from his armor. Understood, wit, caution, and a smidge of theatrics. Check, check, check. Though between us I prefer improvisation, keeps life interesting. A low hum resonated from the ground, stronger than before, as though the planet itself were chuckling or warning. The warrior took a deliberate step back, gesturing toward the alien woman. And I see the audience approves of our little performance, or at least the stage is enthusiastic. Her ears flicked sharply, and she studied him for a long moment. This dance we perform, human, is not merely amusement. It is observation, assessment. Every feint, every joke, every calculated stumble, your strategy reveals itself through behavior. Do not delude yourself that humor masks insight. He clasped his hands behind his head, letting gravity stretch him unnaturally as another fluctuation rippled through the terrain. Ah, but clever insight is best served with a smile. Otherwise, what fun is outwitting a commander? For a fleeting moment, their eyes met, and in the copper depths he saw amusement, calculation, and something else, perhaps curiosity, perhaps the faintest respect. The alien woman advanced, moving with the ease of one who could traverse unstable terrain without effort, each step a lesson in grace and control. You test my patience, she said, yet somehow you provoke interest. This is unexpected. The human warrior gave a small bow, deliberately exaggerated, letting his long hair catch the shifting light. Interest, yes, expectation. Always exceeded. And patience, my dear commander, well, that's where your ears and I have a complicated relationship. A subtle ripple ran across her skin, a faint luminescence that reflected both amusement and irritation, a contradiction he was beginning to learn to read. One day, human, your levity will lead you into danger, she said, and I will not save you. He grinned beneath his visor. Then consider this a rehearsal. If I die, at least the audience had a good show. If I live, well, we both know the sequel will be even better. The alien woman's lips twitched, almost a smile. Incorrigible, she murmured, but perhaps for now I find this entertaining. And so they continued, moving through the planet's shifting landscape like two chess pieces aware of each other's strategies. Each step a test, each just a probe. Danger and humor intertwined as they danced across glowing terrain, through gravitic anomalies, past crystal forests that seemed to lean in to watch, and over rock formations that might stab or support in equal measure. The warrior knew that the climax of this encounter was still distant, but he also knew that every joke, every feigned stumble, every daring leap brought him closer to the moment when his cleverness would meet her authority head-on. The tension was ever present, yet softened by the constant, playful banter, the subtle interspecies chess match that neither wanted to lose and both secretly enjoyed. The human warrior paused at the edge of the final crystalline plateau, the ambient hum of the planet thickening, almost vibrating in time with his heartbeat. Above him, the gas giant swirled in slow, mesmerizing patterns, casting shifting light that painted everything in shades of violet and green. The terrain here was treacherous, a labyrinth of jagged outcrops and bioluminescent flora that pulsed faintly underfoot, as if the planet itself were anticipating the culmination of this encounter. He flexed his fingers inside his adaptive armor gloves, letting the tactile interface scan the surface for weak points, gravity fluctuations, and hidden hazards. The alien woman had been following him steadily, every movement deliberate, her ears twitching in a rhythm that was half curiosity, half command. You've led us far, she said, voice firm but carrying an edge of anticipation. Do you realize how precarious your path has been? One misstep and... I realize, he interrupted, mock solemnity threading his tone, that I could have fallen spectacularly at least 17 times and probably earned a medal for creativity in disaster avoidance. But alas, I survived and here we are. She regarded him with an inscrutable expression. Her copper eyes caught the light, gleaming with both amusement and the hint of respect he had been gradually earning through their prolonged dance of wits. You are incorrigible, she said, ears twitching sharply. Your humor, it is a weapon as much as your skill, but do you understand why we are here? He straightened, brushing imaginary dust from his armor. To prove your point, command me with dramatic flair, and to let me prove that I can survive without becoming a footnote in your planetary records. Oh, and maybe to see if your ears are as expressive under pressure as they are when you're amused. A ripple of luminescence passed over her skin, a subtle blush, and she tilted her head. Do not underestimate me. Kneeling is not merely a gesture, it is the acknowledgement of understanding, the recognition of authority. He glanced around the plateau. Gravity flickered, forcing him to shift stance, and the crystal formations underfoot glinted menacingly. Perfect stage. Ah, I understand, of course. But authority, he added, letting his tone adopt the full weight of playful gravitas, is far more interesting when it is acknowledged willingly, and with a bit of style. Her lips curved almost imperceptibly, ears flicking sharply. You test my patience, she said softly, but you also challenge it in a way that is instructive. He allowed himself a small bow dramatic enough to risk losing balance, then righted himself with a flourish. Then let us consider this a master class in patience, taught by you, received by me, and hopefully graded by a very amused planet. The alien woman moved closer, every step measured, weaving through patches of unstable gravity with elegance that was almost unnatural. She raised her hand, signaling him with a single commanding gesture, "Kneel, warrior, fully now." He let out a sigh, letting the weight of the moment settle. The dramatic tension that had been dancing around them for months coalesced into this single point of decision. "Ah," he murmured, kneeling slowly, exaggerating each movement just enough to draw attention. "So this is it. The climactic kneel. I must admit it feels like the first time I realized I could be clever and still survive." Her gaze softened, copper eyes locking with his. "Do you comprehend the meaning of this moment? To kneel is not submission to weakness but acknowledgement of wisdom, of observation, of insight." He paused mid-motion, letting the words sink in. His humor softened, giving way to genuine reflection. I understand now," he said, voice low, thoughtful. "It's not about defiance or cleverness or even surviving the theatrics of the planet. It's about seeing what I've learned, recognizing the strategy behind authority, and knowing that my actions matter in ways I hadn't considered before." A low resonance hummed through the crystalline plateau, as though the planet itself were affirming the moment. The alien woman's ears flicked in what he now understood as the faintest acknowledgement of respect. "You have grown," she said simply, "in patience, in awareness, in understanding of balance. You have learned to harmonize wit with duty. That is rare among your kind." He allowed himself a genuine grin, a small wave of relief and pride coursing through him. "So, I suppose that means I passed your little interstellar test. All while cracking bad jokes and surviving death traps." She let out a soft exhalation, almost a laugh, the sound bending the ambient air as her ears twitched in rhythm. "Yes, but do not mistake leniency for weakness. The game is never truly over. The universe rewards cleverness, but it also punishes hubris." He nodded, letting the tension that had threaded through the previous months finally loosen. "Understood. And here I thought the lesson would be strictly kneel dramatically and maybe survive. Turns out it's about understanding perspective, patience, and apparently long ears." He gestured toward her ears with a grin, earning a flick that was half admonition, half playful acknowledgement. For a long moment, they simply regarded each other, two warriors from entirely different worlds who had danced a careful, humorous, and dangerous ballet across the alien landscape. His humor had persisted, his theatrics had not faltered, but beneath it all, he had discovered a clarity that came from testing boundaries, reading authority, and learning that cleverness without respect was hollow. The alien woman extended her hand, the gesture formal yet laden with quiet approval. "You have proven more than survival. You have proven insight, adaptability, and a sense of humor that even I can respect." He accepted it, noting the warmth, the firmness, and the subtle pulse that seemed to convey the rhythm of her confidence and curiosity. "I think we make a good team," he said lightly, though the weight behind his voice carried the honesty of reflection. "Interspecies partnerships full of strategy, wit, and the occasional death trap. What could go wrong?" Her ears flicked sharply, a subtle quirk that could have been a smile. "Do not tempt fate," she said softly, "but yes, perhaps we do." For now, the wind shifted, scattering crystal dust that sparkled like a galaxy in miniature. Gravity anomalies rippled one last time, playful but benign, and the warrior realized he felt lighter, freer, as if the journey had stripped away unnecessary caution and left him sharper, more aware, more connected to the strange pulse of the universe around him. He looked at her, and for the first time he saw the balance of authority and curiosity, the lessons hidden behind command, and the subtle joy of mutual challenge. "You know," he said, "I think I'll miss this little planet and you. The combination is unforgettable." She tilted her head, ears flicking, a gesture that conveyed a complexity of emotion he had come to respect deeply. "Perhaps," she said, "but life is full of challenges, human. One does not linger too long in comfort, but we will see each other again, that I promise." He straightened, scanning the horizon. The twin moons glimmered faintly, and the swirling gas giant cast its final iridescent hues across the plateau. "Until next time," he said, voice carrying a mix of humor, respect, and a hint of anticipation. And next time, I'll bring even better jokes. Maybe some intergalactic puns if the planet permits. A subtle luminescent ripple ran through her skin, ears flicking sharply. I will hold you to that, she said. And with that, the tension of months melted into a quiet, shared understanding. The warrior had changed, sharper, wiser, tempered by humor and strategy, aware that cleverness alone was not enough. But cleverness combined with respect and observation could tilt even the balance of power. The alien woman, in turn, had learned the delight of engagement, the subtle joy of a partner who could challenge authority without breaking it. As they moved apart, each following separate paths across the luminous terrain, the planet pulsed softly, as though acknowledging the completion of a chapter. The dance concluded, yet leaving space for the next encounter. Humor, strategy, authority, and respect had intertwined into a conclusion that was neither final nor empty, but satisfying, a moment of clarity amid a galaxy of chaos, and the human warrior, long-eared alien commander at his side, had learned at last that the greatest victories came not from domination, but from understanding, anticipation, and the small, unspoken joy of sharing a challenge worth meeting.